Welcome to the Upshot, Multi-World Disc Golf's podcast about the latest in the disc golf world. I'm the publisher, Charlie Eisenhood. Joining me is Josh Mansfield. It is Tuesday, October 17th. This may be out today. This may be out tomorrow. Either way, it's coming out during the off season, Josh. It's over. The 2023 season is over. Can you believe it?
You know, when I look back, this season feels... A lot of seasons feel like they fly by, and I think during the season it felt that way. But now looking back, this season felt long.
It's been a long time since Las Vegas Challenge.
It's been a long time.
And it's what's interesting, I think for me, the end of the season was really fast. Like Worlds to now feels like it was just a blur, and it was just like one tournament after the other, boom, 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 and it was done. But like, you know, the middle stretch of the season kind of dragged for me a little bit, and it typically does. I think it tends to be the courses I like less. But, you know, overall, I think as we've seen the snapshot of what 2024 is going to look like, a little more breathing room, fewer tournaments that we have to pay attention to. Overall, I think it's going to be for the better for both players and fans to be able to just not have to think about disc golf every weekend. I genuinely don't think that is the best. Like, maybe the super diehards want it that way, but I know I was already taking silvers off regularly, pretty much always.
Yeah, like grabbing the occasional silver at a new course, for example, that I might catch. But yeah, lots of you just... And here's the problem is, even when you had like back-to-back-to-back elite or majors, it made it difficult to commit to the elite events in the same way. It became a lot. Well, good news, Charlie. You don't have to tune into the Pro Tour until July next year because there's no majors.
Yeah, that's going to be a weird one next year. I mean, think about it, right? We're going to be at this time next year saying, okay, 2 weeks to Champions Cup. It's going to be really bizarre.
It is.
But, you know, and I want to talk more about the Pro Tour Championship and kind of that whole at the end of the season flow later in the show. But why don't we start by talking about the Pro Tour Championship, what happened this weekend. Big money Missy does it again. Second time Pro Tour champion. She takes home 40 large. What a way to end the year. Another big payday. And, you know, had to come back, like had to beat a full field, had to beat Kristen, you know, had to come back past Owen, who was in the lead. There was a lot of things that, you know, weren't in her favor, and she played her best round when it counted the most and takes home the payday. On the MPO side, Ricky Wysocki, you know, he heard the doubters. He heard the haters. He heard you, Josh.
He heard me.
He heard you. And he was like, you know what? I'm going to show you what I'm all about, which is jamming monster circle two putts on long wooded courses, and here he is again showing you that he's not going anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Both rounds were really spectacular. I want to start in FPO because I think that there's a really interesting storyline about how that final round kind of developed. Missy Gannon does not come in the lead. And neither does Kristen Tatar, mind you, right? That belonged solely to Owen Scoggins. She was 5 down, had an incredible first round of the finals. So technically round 3, I don't know what to call it. So she comes into the final round 5 down and just shooting a great round. Kat Murch comes in. She's 3 down, looking really good. And Kat Murch comes out to that strong lead, right? Owen starts even through the front 9. We'll say front 8 because Kat Murch gets 3 down and takes the lead.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're watching them, and like especially during that stretch, like kind of trading strokes. Kat Murch has a blow up hole if I ever seen one on hole 9. Hits an early tree, tries to go with this tall, wide like flex shot, clear high up, and doesn't even advance 30 feet. And
it's just tough when that happens.
Oh man.
We've all been there.
we have all been there. Blows up.
I'm going to make the hero shot.
Double bogey, doesn't birdie the rest of the round. And when she gets that double bogey, the next hole, Owen gets it. And now hole 9, right? Kristen has a birdie on hole 9. I think that's the only birdie on the weekend on hole 9. Haley King had a birdie on hole 9. Okay, so there were 2 birdies on a hole 9 the entire weekend. And those belong to Kristen and Haley King, right? Very, very difficult hole. So, is it the end of the world? Owen gets a par, looks okay, but then Owen birdies, and it's like, oh, okay, yeah, this is Owen's tournament. And then implosion, and goes 4 over from holes 12 to hole 17. And in that same stretch, Missy manages to go 1 under. We know that's a more difficult stretch. But what's impressive to me is that Missy was never really in the position to like go out and win it until Owen and Kat both just melted around her. And she continued to play well through a very difficult stretch. And that's why she gets to stand alone on just an easy 18 cleanup to win the tournament.
It's honestly, it's surprising to me that Owen didn't win.
It is.
I wonder a little bit if the fact that she started to think about, wow, I could win 40 large right now, started to weigh on her, because the day before she played that same stretch of holes like 2 under, and then goes 4 over in the final round, and 2 2-shot swings on 13 and 15. That's just too costly.
Yeah.
Too costly.
Yeah.
Very interesting. I mean, and what do you think of the way Nevin laid out? I mean, they definitely made it harder.
Yeah, I actually enjoyed a lot of the changes. I haven't looked at the stats. Now, there are some holes that need fixed for FPO, to say the least. Hole in the final round, there were no birdies on hole 2, hole 4, hole 5, hole 11. And these are, the best FPO players in the world, right?
Yeah. There were 4 holes on both 3rd and 4th round that were not birdied.
Not great.
What? Yeah, and there were I think there were 3 of the 4 were the same between the 2 rounds, and there was 1 that was different. But like, that's a high number of 0 birdies.
Well, and let's see. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Looks like 7 holes where there was only 1 birdie in the final round.
Now, to be fair, there was only 8 players.
Correct.
But this is the best of the best. These are the players who should be getting the birdies.
and MPO only had 12, and their worst birdie percentage at hole 18 was their worst at 17%. So it's only 1. But if I jump over, I mean, there's only 3 that are at 25%, which are 2 birdies, and the rest had 3 or more birdies, which it shows. Yep. It was much, much better tuned for MPO than it was FPO. Don't love that. But I liked Nevin. I liked the changes a lot, and I thought it was an entertaining course to watch. It needs some work and definitely needs some changes. But all in all, I was pleasantly surprised with Nevin. What did you think of hole 18?
It's been a very controversial hole.
It has.
If I'm going to be honest with you, I'm getting a little tired of this same format of hole for every hole 18.
Okay.
Like, okay, I know we saw the holy shot. I know it's cool to have a hole that requires like a pressure shot down the the second shot with OB all around, keyhole type thing. But like, when I saw it the first time after the fort, I forget what tournament it was. Somebody redesigned. Maybe it was OTB or something.
OTB or Port. Oh, yeah, I think it was OTB. I think
you remember this?
Yeah.
I was like, hey, cool idea. Like they took a bad hole and they applied this logical thing that we saw work well. And now I'm like, okay, it's getting a little passe to keep playing the same hole, especially because it doesn't fit the rest of the course in any meaningful way to me. I mean, you have to admit it. It did deliver some drama. I mean, look what happened at the cut line,
right?
In the second round, where people are going OB over and over. Jessica Weiss completely blows up her chances to make it to the finals, and then gets into some kind of spat with Katrina Allen about her scorecard. And you've got people who need to knock down putts from circle 2. They don't make them. And James Proctor misses a putt, and Nicholas misses a putt, and you think he's out, and then James misses the putt, so then Nicholas is back as he makes his putt. And so, like, on that front, solid. But I think, for me, there was another course this year where hole 18 felt totally out of context. and I'm having a hard time remembering what the course was, but it was a similar thing where it was like mostly woods, and then we just like come out into the open and have this weird hole 18. That's how this one felt to me. It's just out of place is what I would call it.
Yeah.
What did you think?
I agree. The thing, here's the one thing that I'll give. I feel like every shot had a risk reward choice.
I'm not even necessarily saying it's a bad hole.
You're just tired of it.
This is the same hole that we see over and over again now. I don't know. I get why they do it. It's tried and true.
Yeah, it is.
It's like going to Texas Roadhouse.
After a win.
Yeah.
That's right. It was fine. It was fine. Like, I'm glad it had drama, but it's, again, I think it's one of those that benefited from the fact that Kyle Klein needed a hero shot, and it was a difficult hole to make a hero shot on, but it was still possible, right? And it forced him to make a shot that he probably would not have chosen to throw if he were not in that situation. I'm glad that was available, but to be honest, at this point, welcome to the bare minimum bar, right? The bottom threshold of a hole 18 is that it should have at least the possibility of a 2-stroke swing.
Yeah. But you know what? It did, right? It checked a lot of the boxes that we would set for hole 18.
Yeah.
I just think it's kind of weird to have it on a Charlotte wooded course, you know? So on the MPO side, this was an interesting tournament because, and I have to say, I don't really like this part of it. You know, it doesn't matter how awesome you shoot in rounds 1 and 2. Mm-hmm. Like, Calvin has an incredible round, and so what? It goes away. And you could say that for a number of players.
Yep.
And so it's really about, like, who could put together 2 rounds, who you obviously survive in advance, but then who can rock and roll. And that person was Rick. Mm-hmm. And, you know, Kyle Klein got himself into the conversation. We saw Rick look like maybe going to get away from him, and he was able to hold on thanks to a tremendous round 3. So I think it's a little bit of a problem for me that the format encourages just like who can get red hot for one great round and then like have that come at the right time. Because if it comes in round 1, you're not going to win. If it comes in round 2, you're not going to win. If it comes in round 3, you can definitely win. And if it comes in round 4, it depends on obviously we can do all the numbers and everything, but I want to see this tournament, and I talked about this a bunch in the reacts. I want to see this tournament figure out a way to reward somebody for a 4-round performance and not feel like we're deciding the biggest cash tournament of the year and what is supposed to be this crowning achievement on one of the flukiest results of the season.
I hear you. And I agree in principle. I do want to point out, if you were to just take your podium, I didn't do this for everybody else, but if you just take Rick, Kyle, and Calvin, if you make their cumulative scores and get rid of starting strokes, 23, 22, 21 in the order that they are in podium.
And so it would have been the same.
It would have been Rick, Kyle, Calvin,
but Calvin would have been much further into the conversation for the final round.
Correct. And that is correct.
Matters.
And that does matter. Well, and it also, I got rid of starting strokes in that math. And if you give Calvin his starting strokes back, it's a tie for first. Here's the thing.
And maybe you keep the starting strokes. The PGA does it. It works fine.
That's what I was about to say. I hate this reset. And I thought that I was going to, and I was 100% right. I think the reset's dumb. If you want to reward the players for playing well all season long, give them the strokes. And it's clear that, I mean, again,
you could still have a cut.
Sure. Have a cut. I love that idea. But give the players the strokes and let them have it for the entire time. It was clear to me that now, is somebody with 0 starting strokes going to make up 6 starting strokes? That didn't look like it was going to happen. And it definitely probably wouldn't happen. But
this is designed to be the reward for your performance over the course of the season.
Yes.
So if you were the best player during the season, then you get rewarded with strokes that give you a advantage going into this tournament to win $40,000.
And I don't look at this and go like, oh yeah, Rick played well. He wins the money. But Rick's our Pro Tour champion. Like what did he do this season again? I don't remember. Like, and that's hard. It's hard when the guys who deserved the stroke. I mean, they deserve the strokes that they earned throughout the season. And Calvin Calvin deserves the strokes.
They get the free square to get into the second round. At which point, everything that they've done no longer matters.
And that's the other part.
That's what's weird.
Kristen and Calvin, they can shoot terrible and still make it into the final round. What was the cut line? So the cut line in MPO, how many strokes was it?
Let's figure this out too.
Oh.
Would Kristen still have won? Would Kristen have won had she had her starting strokes carry through and all of her rounds carry through?
Loses. Oh, I don't know about all the other rounds. So give me 1 sec. I want to point out one other thing real fast.
Okay, go ahead.
The other thing I want to point out, if Calvin didn't play rounds 1 and 2, he would have advanced to the finals with his 6-under start.
That's incredible.
You give them so much strokes that all he has to do is play even par and he makes it to the finals. So it doesn't meaningfully matter in the semifinals level because 2 rounds is too much to overcome 6 strokes. But then you get rid of them for the finals. I hate the format. I like the old format better.
So let's see. Kristen was 7 under and Owen was 9 under in the first 2 rounds.
Yep. Assuming they're
Missy
keeping their strokes.
Was 2 under.
Yep.
And then Missy was 5 under in the second 2 rounds, so she would have finished at 7 down.
Yep.
Owen would have finished at
11,
and Kristen would have finished at 6, so Owen would have won. And Missy would have been in second. And so there you go, right? The argument that I heard from people before the weekend was, well, it's going to be a runaway if Kristen gets to have these starting strokes and carry them the whole time. No. Like, it ultimately wouldn't have even been that close. Now, of course, you could say, well, it would have been different if she'd had the strokes, blah, blah, blah. But, I mean, Owen was ahead after 2 rounds.
Yeah.
With the starting strokes. So, I think there's just no reason. I think you still have the cut because the cut was interesting.
Agreed.
But you don't get any benefit by resetting the scores after the cut.
And here's this. I say cut after every round. Every round you cut the bottom 4 or bottom 8.
Ooh, I kind of like that.
And just cut, and you have to make it every single round, but then just don't reset scores.
It would be very interesting because I think what it does, and to be fair, it makes it a harder job for the production team, but it keeps the top of the leaderboard interesting and the bottom of the leaderboard interesting. Every day. So you're like watching people come in on 18, and you're like, I care about these putts. For people who are 7 shots off the lead, because it's like, will they advance and make an extra $5,000, or will they not?
Yep.
Because that was a fun part of this weekend.
Right. Here's the other thing that I think people are forgetting. When you say, "Oh, I'm going to give Kristen 5 strokes," you think of the times Kristen has played with a 5-stroke lead. It usually goes like you would expect it, where Kristen wins the tournament. Here's the problem, though, is that 5-stroke lead is often after a round or 2. When you are beginning a 4-round tournament with 5 or 6 strokes, you're telling us 1.25 strokes for FPO per round is all that a player has to make up.
And she only has 1 stroke or 2 strokes over the other best players.
Right. Yes.
She has 5 strokes over the worst players in the tournament.
But
and so, okay, like those players probably aren't going to catch Kristen.
Probably
Sorry.
Not.
Play better during the season. But like we can see from the math here, very simple, that Owen would have outplayed her and beaten her straight up over 4 rounds with the strokes.
No.
And it would have been a more interesting MPO finish because Calvin would have been
in the mix,
much closer to the top, and maybe we go to a playoff, and who knows? Anyway, I think there's a lot of room for improvement for this tournament, both on the format side and on the timing and on potentially the location. I mean, Josh, there was nobody there.
Yeah.
It was a ghost town. And I can you blame people?
It's hard to do it's hard to follow up USDGC.
Josh, if you lived in Charlotte Maybe you would go to both. Maybe that's not the right question.
Yeah, you shouldn't ask me. Here, no. Better question. I have the money to attend either USDGC or the Pro Tour Championship.
Let's say you live in Pocatello, Idaho, for instance. And you're going to have to fly across the country, but you only have a week of vacation time.
Yep.
So where are you going?
I'm going to USDGC.
Do you even think about it?
No.
Exactly.
No. And I mean, this tournament would be a snooze fest if it weren't for 40K.
It's true.
And it struggles to not be a snooze fest even with 40K. I'm going to be honest. I tuned in on like the back 6 holes on the semifinals round, and that was it, to see who was going to make the cut. I didn't watch anything from round 1 because it didn't matter. It didn't matter even a little bit for the semifinals. So it's just, yeah, it's hard. It's hard to care about it when you know they're going to get reset. Man, thank goodness that Champions Cup did not do this. Do you remember when they wanted to reset the top 4?
Oh no, the match play concept.
That's right.
That was wild.
So we learned, don't reset scores halfway through like this weird. No.
I mean, it has pros and cons. It does make things a sprint. It makes it exciting in that way. It means that you reward a player like Ricky for coming out and over the final 2 rounds of the tournament, shooting an absolutely ridiculous 86% circle 2 putting percentage. He almost eclipsed his circle 1 putting percentage at 90%. And you know, if you just ball out for 2 rounds, you win 40 grand.
Right. Well, but if the sprint is what you care about, then go back to the old format, because that was way better and more entertaining with the buys.
Right, because then you get the individual sprints.
Yes. So that's the
repeats.
problem. Is like you say it has pros and cons, but like when I weigh it against the old format or the idea of just not resetting strokes, there's no reason at all that I would ever choose this format.
It's fair. That's fair. I think we'll see changes again. They have to make changes. I mean, it's sad to see so few people there. And I know they struggle to have volunteers were no showing. There's clearly it's too much to ask the Charlotte disc golf community to do USDGC and then also do this 3 days later.
Yep.
It's just too much. And it's felt like this for a long time. And I feel like this necessitates changes after this year, because I feel like this hurts the image of the Pro Tour a little bit. I think it kind of, the tournament feels underwhelming. There's nobody there. It's like really, I mean, you said it. If the money wasn't here, no one would care. No one would watch. It doesn't feel like we're crowning a champion. It's like, oh, they won a big money. Cool.
Yeah. Cool.
It's cool. I mean,
at that point,
credit to them, but I feel like we want the tournament to match the payout and not feel like we're trying to force the payout to make the tournament fun and interesting.
Yes. Yeah. And I don't know. Does this mean should we put it to Florida and make it in November and pretend that Champions Cup is in the spring, right? If you were to have a month gap before the Pro Tour Championship and then do something, down in Florida or at a resort kind of style, throw it down the mountain.
You clearly didn't listen to the Rapid Reacts, for which you just ghosted me, ghosted our fans, ghosted all the Discord. I hope you had fun on Sunday night. Here's my thought.
Okay.
It's simpler. Pro Tour Championship happens at MVP Open. 4-round tournament.
Yep.
Qualify to get in. We already do it to an extent.
Sure.
You back up the playoffs a little bit.
Yeah.
And then you let that tournament in mid-September be the conclusion to the Pro Tour Championship, to the Pro Tour, which makes lots of sense, because then we are going after that to USDGC, which should be the last tournament of the season.
I like the idea.
It feels better sequencing wise to have that be the capstone for the Pro Tour Championship. And then you're not forcing it to be the last one, to be like, oh, this is the crowning achievement. It's going to feel like a better fit in the calendar to have it happen at MVP. you make GMC a playoff, and then I don't know what the one before that is. What was it this year?
It was D-Glow this year.
It was D-Glow, and then
GMC was the Worlds.
Yep. Why not? Why not?
Yeah.
It's like a different style of course.
Uh-huh.
So you're not forcing it all to be Northeast.
Yep.
And then you build up to the MVP Open, and maybe you run that concurrently with an event that allows other pros to compete, but you focus your energy on the top, X cards that play at the end. But then there's like this other tournament that's happening simultaneously. I don't know. There's a lot of ways you could think about it, but I'm curious for your thoughts on that.
I like it, and I think there's a couple of things that benefit from it. Number one is MVP has a really amazing volunteer network and infrastructure that it is, Charlotte does as well. But again, the double taxed point that you make, right?
Right.
So MVP, and that's what my concern is in terms of like picking a new venue and just sticking it somewhere else is does that have the kind of necessary framework? Number two, it's on a proven course. I think that's a really important thing because it's hard to care about. I mean, like at the All-Star event, sometimes they've done it on a course before that was not that exciting. It wasn't that fun to watch, and that hinders the quality of an event. Is the course. So if it and then number three is it happens at a course that like MVP is before we had the Pro Tour and the iteration that it was. Like you had the majors and you had MVP in terms of importance, right? MVP really did, winning MVP was nearly on the terms of winning a major in the past.
Glad you agree.
It really was.
Top non-major tournament. Glad you agree.
Okay, hold on. I said it used to be. I think that MVP has lost that a little bit because it's, mixed in with other tournaments, and like Ledgestone, for example. I think it'd be very fitting to give MVP an event that allows it to be a part of the history books again, year in and year out.
And isn't it like chef's kiss to have it be Steve Dodge? You'd have to rework some stuff,
Absolutely.
Because MVP has paid for naming rights to this tournament, and so how would you deal with that?
Uh-huh.
Maybe you have the DGPT championship at the MVP Open, presented by, powered by, because you could have one of the complaints that we've heard about the tournament is that it's starting to block regional pros from being able to compete because it's become this playoff event. This is why, in my mind, I'm thinking about how can you make sure that lots of people can still play. Maybe you have the MVP Open, which is like an A tier or something.
Yeah.
And then you have at that event, you have the DGPT championship. Because it doesn't really matter. Like the player, you can separate it into two pools of players and you're good to go. And then all the pros can still go and play, and all the fans are going to come out from Massachusetts.
Yep.
And it would be awesome. And then you get a week off, and then we have USDGC, and the season ends. To me, the flow is so much better.
I agree.
So I don't know if Dodge would agree to it. I don't know if they could work out the details. The Pro Tour would have to also want to do that. But then you're putting the tournament at the best course in the United States, 4 rounds, super fun, and it really truly does elevate that tournament back to being that, like, it's like the unofficial 5th major, right? And that's how it's supposed to feel. That we have that tournament in golf. Why can't we have that tournament in disc golf? Right now, it doesn't exist as the Pro Tour Championship for me. It doesn't feel like a major.
Yeah, I try to care about it. I try to care about it like it's a major. I just can't. It's funny because you open up the show where you're talking about Ricky and he heard me and Ricky showed us, and I'm like, showed us what? That he won another XA event? Like good for him. Like it's not a major, and that's it felt that way. It didn't feel like Ricky, won it. I think it feels more like Holland won a major at Throw Pink than it did that Ricky or Missy won a major this year.
I definitely agree.
And that right there, that should indicate to you that there's a problem. If the Pro Tour Championship needs to be at that level and pay out that kind of money, then right there, that sentiment is, I think, a very clear highlight of the problem that it has right now.
I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, we're going to have this logjam of big tournaments at the end of the season. Just make it feel like it fits better together. The Charlotte back-to-back thing, it's not working, and that's okay. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, 30-second rule. We got some good stuff, including Discmania getting acquired. We'll be back.
At Pound, the quality of our gear runs deeper than the stitching. That's why we make everything right here in the US, employing highly skilled, well-paid professionals. From bomb-proof Cordura fabric to YKK zippers and recycled plastics, we source the highest quality US materials to make the most comfortable, durable pack in disc golf. Our lifetime warranty stays with the pack, not the purchaser. So regardless of how you find us, we will be here to make sure your pack stays on the course and out of the landfill. Pound's integrity is held together with more than just thread.
Welcome back to the Upshot. Josh, I think it's time to have the conversation. Did Missy Gannon take Player of the Year from Kristen Tatar this weekend?
I think Missy can get her official badge of committee chairman or chairwoman. She's earned that badge, but no, I don't think she has taken Player of the Year.
Even if you let the fans vote, I think you get it right this year. The MPO Player of the Year conversation, well, we didn't really get any clarity from these last couple tournaments. And we're going to break it all down next week. We're going to let it marinate a little more. We're going to pull some stats. We're going to deep dive this conversation next week, and we're going to make our official pronouncements. And people are going crazy in the Discord right now about this. And I would say that 95% of people are either Calvin or Isaac, but I've seen the little sprinklings of other people in there. Like, should we be talking about Kyle? What about Ricky? What about Gannon? I think those people are all wrong, but it's out there. And then we have these two players, and it is really feeling like I've seen people saying, I look at these stats and it's obvious to me that the answer is Calvin. And someone else says, I look at these same stats and it's obvious to me the answer is Isaac. And it's like the gold and white versus the blue and black dress, Josh.
Oh man, it really feels like that.
Was it gold and white or blue and black for you?
I think it was blue and black for me.
Gold and white. I just looked it up again. Gold and white. So we will break it down. I have officially not made a decision. I can tell you that right now.
I'm in the same boat.
Okay. So together we will come to our conclusions. Perhaps we will end up on the same side, perhaps not. And then we get to make official votes. Amazing.
That's right.
We'll see how the voting breaks down in the end. That's coming on next week's show. There's only one show this week because you'll find out in 30-second rule, which starts right now. You have 30 seconds on each topic, and if you go past the time limit, it doesn't matter. Josh, take it away.
Yep. First up, Kristen Tatar does finalize her record as the most earnings in a single season, coming in at $116,247. This is, of course, assuming she doesn't play some C-tier in Estonia before the end of the year. Feels unlikely, but $116,000. The important note for Kristen, though, this record really gets set basically every year. She set it last year, and then Ricky beat her a couple hours later. That happened the year before that when Missy set the highest record, and then that got set. What's important about this stat is that Kristen is the first one in a long time to set this record without winning the Pro Tour Championship.
That's right. And I mean, she could have eclipsed $150,000 had she won Throw Pink and the Tour Championship. But yeah, number one cash earner all time in a single season. And she did it by winning pretty much all of the other big tournaments.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, still very sizable payouts for her second and fourth place, thanks to those events. That brought in another $16,000, but yeah, eclipsed the $100,000 mark without Throw Pink. before throw pink.
We throw around these numbers and people are like, it's not that much money, and like, $40,000. Like, when are we going to get $1 million? I just want everybody to take a second and think about it. Like, $40,000 for winning one tournament is a lot of money.
Yeah.
There are plenty of people who don't make $40,000 in a single year.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is, it's not a great amount of money to earn for a single year, but it is one that is normal. And Kristen, just from tournament earnings, is making a what is in the United States a well above sort of like middle class single season earnings. Now, obviously, she has a lot of expenses with all the travel and whatnot, but a lot of that's being covered by her sponsorship, and she's probably making what? If I had to guess, I think she's probably making $400,000 to $500,000 a year right now in total earnings. Yeah, that's a complete guess.
Yeah, I mean, because we know that it's at minimum $250K between winnings and her contract, just base guaranteed contract. That's $250.
But I mean, she's got to be getting a cut of all those graces.
Mm-hmm. Just for reference, her winnings this year put her at the 86th percentile for salaries in the United States.
There you go.
So
it's awesome. It's like a lot of, my point is it's still a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money to play.
Like it's not a lot in the context of professional sports in the United States, but it's still a lot of money.
To go throw frisbees for your job, that's
pretty sweet.
Pretty sweet.
Pretty sweet.
Next up, 30-second rule. Paul McBeth and Hannah McBeth had their baby. Pablo Genesis McBeth is their kiddo, and big congratulations to them. That's
so
one
awesome.
Of the reasons Paul didn't compete at USDGC, obviously, is because they were having the kid. So good for them.
Yeah, big congratulations to them both. I kind of love it that he went with Pablo.
I do too.
I did not see it coming, Josh. I really didn't.
Well, and the Genesis is going to be the next release in his lineup now. So
of course.
Next, in 30-second rule, Discmania announces signing with House of Discs. This is something that we've talked about for a while. We talked to UC about it. We talked about it in kind of our odds and predictions a little bit. And, it felt like the natural extension of the next place where Discmania was going to go. A quick quote from the Discmania press release. In the coming years, House of Discs will invest in the growth of disc golf as a whole to ensure that each brand, including Discmania, in the group receives the financial assets and professional expertise to grow to a level that elevates the sport and the brands to new heights. This group will also allow Discmania to have the most success, opportunity, and growth in the coming years. This press release also highlights that this merger or acquisition happened sometime this summer. It doesn't specify when exactly.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I'm not shocked whatsoever, which you'll know if you were listening to the Rapid Reacts on Sunday. I think I'm really curious what the structure of all these deals is, and how much are the founders of these companies like UC and Jeremy Rusko, how much are they cashing out here? And versus how much do they still retain control? Like Rusko, we know is taking kind of a step back.
Yeah.
And like, what is the long-term vision? These are all questions that I have that I would like to ask to the operators of these businesses and write about more in the off season. So stay tuned. I think this amount of consolidation is just the first wave of what we're going to see across the industry, which is that, the Innovas. So you kind of have like Innova Camp.
Mm-hmm.
You have, what do we want to call it? It's not Trilogy anymore. It's
you have House of Discs Camp.
Pentalogy. Right. We have House of Discs.
We have House of Discs. You have Innova.
We have House of Discs. We have Innova. We have Discraft Camp. And then we have like MVP Camp.
Yeah. And then you probably should consider Prodigy.
And Prodigy Camp. Yes.
Prodigy Camp.
So
but
do
like
any
DGA
of those other big brands converge? Because DGA it's not a Discraft subsidiary directly, I don't think, but like obviously a very tight relationship there. Same thing with some of the brands that are associated with Innova, with MVP, They're making plastic for other smaller manufacturers.
Correct.
So to me, that I consider those companies, they have so much power in those relationships, as we saw with Innova and Discmania, that it kind of creates these things. And you could argue with House of Discs and Discmania. Now, we don't know what the details of the conversations behind the scenes are, but remember, they have been in a very tight relationship with Latitude 64 for a long time now.
Mm-hmm.
So I find it all very fascinating. I think that I am sort of like neutral on whether I think this will be good or bad for these individual brands and for, how things move forward. Like, how much differentiation is there between these brands in the eyes of consumers? I genuinely don't know.
I don't either.
Like, when you think about Westside, DD, Castoplast, Discmania, Latitude 64, like, what comes to mind? Like, I sort of ask that as a hypothetical, rhetorical question, because it's just, to me, there's like subtle little things, but so much of it feels connected to, what's the marketing around it and what players throw their discs.
The other part that's weird to me is like, you'll find occasionally like loyalists to a disc that's like manufactured by that's sold under, I should say, this is how I should phrase it now, that is sold under the Dynamic Discs brand that will swear off anything that's like, because there are counterparts in Westside and Latitude 64 for discs and Dynamic Discs that are very, very comparable. And you'll have people who just like will swear off those other like parts of Trilogy because they only want to throw that one. It's weird. It's a weird, because how do you make the decision in terms of how much marketing has already gone into establishing those brands versus how much you want to invest in marketing moving forward in the divergent brands?
It's going to be fascinating to see how they handle it moving forward.
It would be more cost efficient to market as one singular brand, but that kind of throws away all the work that's gone in the past. It's really interesting.
Yeah, and if you kind of try to shoehorn it all into one thing, you're going to see some of the brands just totally decline into zeros because they're going to be cannibalized by other ones in the portfolio. It's just like there's no. It's a challenge for them to have this many brands and try to have them all be their own thing.
Well, that's my question: is should they do that though? Like intentionally, should they just kill off Westside and bring over the Westside molds and just say, no, these are House of Discs. This is now a House of Disc harp, right?
Right.
Like,
I don't know.
That's
we're way past 30 seconds. What's next?
People smarter than me are making that decision. The final one, Charlie, you are not in New York.
Oh, I'm not.
Where are you at? For those on YouTube, Charlie is sitting outside in what looks like a beautiful location. It's
beautiful. It's fantastic. I am at my Airbnb in San Diego. I'm in Solana Beach, technically, for those from the area. I am getting ready for the USA Ultimate National Championships. This is the what is this? This is the Worlds of Ultimate.
This is the big one.
This is the big one.
Okay, because you've had college nationals. That was a while ago.
That was back in Memorial Day. Mm-hmm.
Yep. So that's an important one. That's already done. We just had a couple, like a month ago, I think. You had the. Oh my! Well,
you got the U.S. Open. You got the Pro Championships. You got the AUDL Championships.
AUDL. That's the AUDL Championships. That's what I couldn't remember. So now you've got Club Nationals.
This is the Club Championships.
This is the big one.
Similar. It's the branding of tournaments in Ultimate is just terrible. But this is the big one. I mean, this is the one that like the best players all play for their local club teams. You have to qualify to get into this tournament. Only 16 teams in each division. And then they all come play a 4-day tournament here in San Diego. And it's all getting streamed live. If you have an Ultiworld subscription, you can watch tons of it. If you don't, you can still watch some of the games for free on YouTube, on our YouTube channel. And it's a lot of fun every year.
Okay. Who should I root for this year? Who do I need to follow?
All right. Give me your criteria for this year.
Okay. Yeah. This year, I want, if there's a Las Vegas team, I want to root against them.
There's There is no Vegas team.
Okay. All right. Darn it. I also like to root. I typically root against New England, just due to the Denver Broncos, Patriots. So I enjoy rooting against New England. I like Colorado teams. I like Salt Lake teams. And then I'm a Dallas Stars fan, so I'm also I'm open to a Dallas.
I think you should just go with the Colorado teams. It's an easy option, and they are all championship contenders. In fact, if you recall, Josh, the two Denver teams last year in the men's and women's divisions both won the tournament. The women's team, very good. Molly Brown, they are still a top-level team. They have aspirations of going back-to-back. Johnny Bravo, the men's team, long-standing historical team. They kind of came out of nowhere to win last year. They are underdogs. In fact, I picked them to not even make it to the bracket, Josh.
Oh,
that was a bit of a hot take.
All right.
And then you have Shame out of Fort Collins, even a little bit closer to you in Pocatello. Yep. And they are the top seed in the mixed division.
Okay.
And they play with a lot. They play a very fun style. So you got one team in each division, and you're ready to go.
All right, perfect. That's all I needed. The other team that I think I rooted for last year was DC Truck Stop. Yep,
they're the one seed and
they're the one seed. Okay,
hoping to finally win a title. They've never done.
Okay, all right. Okay, I hope I get a seat because they're in the men's division, right?
That's right.
Against Johnny Bravo.
Yep.
Okay,
and their nemesis team is Pony out of New York City. Okay, and Pony has the most talent, I think, but has been a little disjointed in terms of kind of the chemistry.
Okay.
Truck's been excellent. They just won against Pony at the Pro Championships over Labor Day weekend, but it's kind of feels like coin flip right now of which of those teams is going to win. They're definitely the two favorites.
Okay, all right. Well, it's going to be fun to watch. Everyone should tune in. It's so much fun to watch Ultimate.
If you're ready for a little more disc sports, here we go. And we got the Beach World Championships coming up in Huntington Beach in like 2 weeks. So if you want to just keep it rolling.
Okay.
the frisbee sports never stop, Josh.
Frisbee sports never stop. Frisbee sports did not make the Los Angeles Olympics, unfortunately.
Nope. Oh man. Yeah. Ultimate took a giant L, and disc golf is kind of still hoping for Ultimate to kind of lead the way there, but I think long run, disc golf has a real chance to be the one that gets in. I mean, you look at like what's going on right now in China, like people are getting frisbee crazy in China. Like it's one of the fastest growing sports. And we've got the World Games coming up there in Chengdu in 2025. Very exciting.
Absolutely. Well, that's it for 30-second rule.
All right. And that's it for today's show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Get us your mail, off-season mailbag. You know it's coming. You can email us at upshot@ultiworld.com. And we'll be back with you next week to break down the men's player of the year conversation. Is it Calvin? Is it Isaac? We'll make our decisions on next week's show. For Josh Mansfield, I'm Charlie Eisenhood saying so long, and we'll talk to you then from San Diego, signing off.